The film opens with a flashback. Jesse Pinkman and Mike Ehrmantraut are standing by a lake after their train robbery. They discuss their plans to leave the meth business behind them. Jesse asks Mike where he would go if he was his age, and Mike responds that he would go to Alaska 'cause it would be a good place for a fresh start. Jesse hopes his next step will be to right his wrongs, but Mike says that's one thing he can't undo. In the present, Walter White, aka Heisenberg, is now dead after helping Jesse escape the captivity of the neo-Nazi gang. Jesse drives the El Camino triumphantly down the road until he almost comes across a police car. He manages to hide as the cop passes, and he then makes his way to the home of his best friends, Badger and Skinny Pete. The two are in shock to see Jesse in his condition, as they had heard about his enslavement. They provide Jesse with food and a place to sleep for the night, and they stash the El Camino in the back at Jesse's behest. The following morning, news of the Nazi gang's massacre, Walt's death, and Jesse's involvement as his partner and prisoner of the Nazis hits the airwaves, which Badger and Skinny watch. They go to Jesse's room, but he has some PTSD from his captivity and pulls his gun on the two when they go check up on him. In the wake of all the news on TV, they suggest that Jesse take a shower and stay out of sight. Jesse washes the grime and blood off of him, which makes him remember when the Nazis sprayed him with a hose. He comes out of the bathroom clean-shaven, and he tells the guys he needs to get rid of the El Camino. They contact old Joe from the dump, and he heads to the house agreeing to take care of the job for free. This changes when the low jack on the El Camino is activated, meaning cops are already on their way. Thinking quickly, Skinny gives Jesse the keys to Badger's car while Badger is to drive Skinny's car to the border and hide it, which leaves Skinny with the El Camino to provide cops with a cover story. And he persuades Jesse to make his way out of there. Jesse drives away and tries to maintain obscurity as a whole line of cop cars head toward Badger and Skinny's house. As he heads on, he stops to pull over somewhere as he contemplates his next move. He listens to the radio and hears news reporting on Walt's death, as well as the woman he poisoned with ricin not expected to survive. Another flashback shows Jesse's time in captivity. While the rest of the Nazis were away, Todd Alquist takes Jesse out of his cage to ask for help on a task. After placing a top on Todd's car, he brings Jesse to his apartment where Jesse spots the corpse of Todd's cleaning lady Sonia. According to Todd, she came across his hidden stash of money, which he kept inside a hollowed-out almanac, and although he liked Sonia, Todd felt compelled to kill her to cover his tracks. He makes Jesse help him bury her by rolling up her body in a rug and burying her in the desert. At one point, Jesse reaches into the car and takes out a gun with the intention of killing Todd, but Todd talks him down and Jesse just breaks down in tears and hands the gun over to him. Back in the present, Jesse makes his way to Todd's now closed-off apartment in order to find said stash of money, while also trying to stay hidden from one of the tenants in the building who's known for snooping. Kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel. As he tries searching for the money, he spots a news report on TV with his parents Arthur and Diane, who urge Jesse to turn himself in. Jesse spends the night looking through every inch of the house for the money and almost gives up until he discovers it is hidden inside the refrigerator door. At that moment, two men posing as detectives, Neil and Casey, enter the building to look for the money also. Jesse stays hidden under a bed until Casey comes upon him, at which point Jesse aims his gun at him and makes him give his own gun up. Neil comes over as Casey calls out to him, but he figured something's fishy and he draws his gun on Jesse, claiming that there are cops around who will hear the commotion and come storming up there. Jesse quickly realizes they aren't cops and that they were affiliated with the Nazis. Jesse offers to show them where it is on the condition that they split it 3 ways. Neil agrees to it after Jesse shows him where it is. As they leave, Jesse notices Neil's truck from Candy Welding Co., and Neil tells Jesse he was wondering when he would recognize him. Jesse continues his move when he spots a vacuum cleaner store, as well as a red minivan. He enters the store and meets Ed Galbraith, the identity eraser that Jesse was supposed to meet through Saul Goodman. Jesse acknowledges that he was aware there are no second chances with Ed, but he takes out the big bag of Todd's money and gives Ed the $125,000 that is needed to do the job. Ed says that only covers the previous intended encounter, and this current job would require another $125,000. Jesse comes up short $1,800, so Ed refuses to help. As Jesse is determined to get the job done at any cost, he locks himself and Ed in the store, but Ed starts to call the cops. Jesse thinks he's bluffing since Ed hung up so quickly, as well as having to explain why Jesse is there in the first place, but a cop car pulls up almost instantly. Jesse runs and hides, and Ed gives the cops a fake description of the suspect he called about. Jesse then calls Ed and agrees to find the rest of the money. We see another flashback of Jesse as a prisoner. This is when Neil first came to the Nazi compound to set up the mechanism that they used to keep Jesse chained up. Kenny torments Jesse by forcing him to run until he breaks the whole thing off, just to settle a bet with Neil that what he built isn't as strong as he claims, which Kenny of course loses. Jesse calls his parents in their home, and he mentions their appearance on the news and their suggestion he turn himself in, but they insist it's for his protection and good. He asks them to pick him up at a park alone, and also adds that they did their best in raising him, and however he turned out is all on him and his choices. Jesse waits for his parents and the cops watching their house to leave so he can sneak inside the house and get 2 guns that they had stashed away in a safe. Jesse tracks down Candy Welding Co. and finds Neil and Casey's location where they are hanging out with their 3 friends and some strippers. After the women leave, Jesse enters the shop and requests the rest of the money he needs to get out. Neil notes the .22 caliber pistol in Jesse's waistband and challenges him to a duel with his .45 caliber pistol. Jesse agrees, but as Neil gets ready to grab his gun, Jesse shoots him dead with the other gun he had hidden in his pocket. Casey then grabs a gun and tries to shoot Jesse, leading to them exchanging rapid shots fired and constantly missing until Jesse manages to shoot him in the head. Jesse then orders the remaining 3 men to give him their driver's licenses to keep their addresses known in case they say anything to the cops. Jesse then gets the money and blows up the shop with fuel tanks. One more flashback shows Jesse with Walt after their meth cookout in the desert when their RV broke down. They had found a room to rest and go to have breakfast at a diner. Walt tells Jesse that he should think about his future, with the potential for college or even getting his GED, not realizing that Jesse already graduated high school. Walt also lets Jesse know that he's lucky he didn't have to wait his whole life to do something special. Jesse gives Ed all the money, and he helps take him to Alaska, now using the name Driscoll. Jesse leaves Ed with a letter to mail to Brock, son of Jesse's late girlfriend. As Jesse drives away, he has one last flashback with his former girlfriend Jane. He mentions her philosophy of the universe bringing people where they have to be, but she says it's bullshit and says it's better to make those decisions yourself. The film concludes with Jesse continuing his drive, now ready to start a new life. Moral of the story here is that you shouldn't get involved in drugs and armed businesses so you don't put your life and everyone you care about at risk. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment and subscribe.